I want to thank our CSL music team and the reader for all that they do for our community and to make these services so much better. We're on week 3 of our 13-week series on living the science of mind. Each week is an independent message, and of course I hope that you'll watch all 13 weeks. I think every week has something special to offer. Today our topic is God. Some people have a lot of negative energy around that word God. Sometimes it's leftover hurt from growing up in a religion that depicted God as judgmental or anything other than a loving God. Today I want to begin by inviting you to recognize that the word God is just a label. When I say God, I'm referring to a compassionate, loving, accepting, peaceful being that is the God that Jesus was talking about when he said we are all children of the divine in whom God is well pleased. When I speak of God, it's not about judgment. It's not about learning to earn God's love. It's about recognizing that there is a higher being and that we are all loved and loving as children of the divine. So, if the label God ruffles your feathers, then I suggest that you just substitute Holy Spirit, divine guide, universe, whatever word means something to you about that connection with something bigger than who we are. Because there is a universal one life in which we all play a part. And I think we all recognize that. And that universe responds to us and to our consciousness. So our focus this week is on knowing God, that supreme power back of everything, which, by the way, quantum physics has actually proved existed. So your question for the week is this: what is the one choice that you can make today to know the silent one within you, to recognize God as unity and not duality, and to embrace the God who restoreth your soul? One more time. What is the one choice that you can make today to know the silent one within you, to recognize God as unity and not duality, and to embrace a God who restoreth your soul? Let me start with a quote from Holmes, which was part of his essay, Why Talk So Much About God? There is within each of us a deep awareness, a subjective and a spiritual consciousness, which by pure intuition knows that the universal intelligence, which we call God, exists. Think about that for a minute. Somewhere within us, there is a deep awareness that God exists. You might not call it God, but I believe each of us knows that there's a higher power that operates to keep the sun and the stars and the planets where they belong, and that there's some type of perfect plan encompassing wholeness and harmony. Have we not all had those moments when something unexplainable happens? Something we might actually call a miracle? Because it was an amazing part of our day. It was an amazing outcome to something that was occurring in our lives. Is that not when we know this higher power? When we know that God exists? Holmes also wrote, most certainly God is personal to everyone. And the wonderful thing is that each represents God in a unique way. Each individualizes God, and no two individualizations are identical. Thus, the personality of God is not only real to us, but it is uniquely real. We each indeed have a personal relationship to that higher power, by whatever name we call it. And that relationship has been shaped by all that we've experienced in our own lives. Since none of us have walked exactly the same paths in life, there are no two individualizations of God that are identical. As Holmes put it, the personality of God is uniquely real to each of us. That personality is often shaped by our past, by those times when we were taught to feel guilt or shame, or when we were needing to earn love. That's not the God of our Centers for Spiritual Living. And that's not the God of my understanding. That God that is uniquely real to me is a God of love, a God of wisdom, a God of refuge, a God who restoreth my soul when I feel life is falling down around me. Can anyone relate to that? It's that place, that something, that some entity that I know that no matter how life is looking at the moment, that there's a place that I can take refuge, that my faith can uplift me. Kipling wrote, "Each in his separate star shall draw the thing as he sees it. For the God of things is as they are." Kipling's not saying that we're not united, but rather he's saying that in our own way, we each find God, the God of our being, that individual God, the God that is personal to each of us. Holmes begins his essay on the discovery of God is personal with these words: "No one can find God for us. Each individual must do this for himself. We cannot find God outside the self because we cannot go outside the self. There's no place where we begin and God leaves off. We can find God only within ourselves. And to truly discover God, we have to embrace that statement that there's no place where we leave off and God begins. We must embrace that we are unique expressions of the divine, and within us is the heaven that we're seeking." Holmes went on to say, "There must be a persistent and painstaking attempt to separate everything from us that does not belong to the spiritual man." For me, that brings me right back to that topic which I've been including in the messages for the last couple weeks. We must be aware of our thoughts. We must recognize our unity with the divine. We must remember to keep our minds on the truth. You know, God is not poor or frustrated or unhappy or living in lack. So why do we believe at some level that those attributes could possibly apply to any of us if we truly embrace that we are unique expressions of the divine? If we're feeling unhappy, we've separated ourselves from the divine self. And if we're feeling lack, again, we've separated ourselves from our real self. And guess what? If we're feeling frustrated, you got it. We've separated ourselves from our divine self. Nothing that is anything other than those beautiful attributes of the divine, of beauty and wholeness and harmony and love, is who we are. I'm not saying that our human selves don't experience frustration or unhappiness or even feelings of lack at times. What I am saying is that we can choose at any moment in time to return to the reality that heaven is within us, that we are unique individualizations of God. And we can reconnect with that part of us that is our real self, that part of us that realizes that who we are at the very essence is all good. I sometimes realize that I'm waiting for someone or something to come along and show me the way. Then I realize, hello, Jesus, Buddha, and many of the other master teachers have already done that. Remember that Jesus told us, I am the way, the truth, the light. And if God is personal to me, I can't expect someone else to live life for me. I can't expect someone else to find for me my happiness or my joy or my abundance or my enthusiasm. Holmes wrote it this way: if someone else had to live for us, we could never live for ourselves. The great and long and meaningful secret of life is bound up in this self-discovery. And the most fortunate moment in our lives will be that moment when we come to realize that we must take ourselves for better or for worse, starting right where we are and disregarding time or effort, counting as gain only that which conspires to awaken us to the ultimate reality. We shall travel back to the center and the source. I love that line that says, we must take ourselves for better or for worse. You know, I know when people get married, they say for better or for worse. But how much in your day do you really accept that sometimes you're not going to do things exactly the way others expect you to, or even the way you expected yourself to? I guess the real question here is, are you willing to take yourself for better or for worse? And what might it take for you to travel back to your center, to your source? Holmes even reminds us that this does not have to be difficult. If you truly believe that you're a unique expression of God, then you know that everything you need is right within you. Holmes put it this way: let us all then accept the simple fact that the road to God is through the self, and that the pathway to an ever-increasing experience can be filled with joy. We can sing as we go along. And why need we deny ourselves the privilege of immediate union? For all the long tomorrows will be but continuations of the short todays. Why not find life here and now? Why not find life here and now? And I love that line that says we can sing along the way. It basically says we're the ones that are making life difficult for ourselves. We're the ones that are separating ourselves from the true essence of who we are. In our reading today about the silent one within us, you might remember hearing these words: the Supreme Being is at the center of each one of us. To it we may come for guidance, and from it we may draw both inspiration and the power to live, stand, walk, or sit. For me, the trick is drawing from it, rather than being unaware of the presence and that silent one within myself. We each have to learn to make the effort to connect with the silent one within us and to draw our inspiration from that divine one. Remember to see that personal God, the God that is right within us. You know, in the 20th century, miracles seem to be so commonplace. How can people get excited about a man who walked on water when we had men that walked on the moon? Perhaps that's why that in today's day and age, to fend off despair and to really embrace life, humanity needs to go beyond miracles. We need to go to that place of believing that the impossible is possible, that there can be an end to suffering, that there can be emptiness that's filled up, that we indeed all can each be loved. In his essay, God, Your Personal Self, Holmes wrote this: "The God within you is a unity and not a duality. This unity is changeless, forever revealing itself to each." The God within you is a unity and not a duality. The unity is changeless, forever revealing itself to each. I think very often we don't really believe in the unity, that we believe in these individual expressions. I'm me, they're who they are, and we get into that us and them mentality. So Holmes goes on to state that we worship the God that we believe in rather than the God who is. And sometimes that God that we believe in is not the God of unity or the God of abundance. He even tells us that sometimes that God that we believe in is part of the God who is. But the point of his writings about these two gods is summed up in these words: "But there is nothing wrong about this, since the God who is believed in is at times some part of the God who is. Therefore, whatever God you believe in, provided you believe this God is already in you, must respond to you at the level of your belief. This is why it is done unto each of us as we believe. The principle is infallible. The practice is what we make it." The principle is infallible. The practice is what we make it. That is really an amazing statement, because he's saying whatever God we believe in, provided it's the God that we already believe is within us, it responds to us at the level of our belief. That's just another way of saying what we've said very often: it's done unto us as we believe. And I think that if we could embrace that it's done unto us as we believe, and we could believe in the God of abundance, we could believe in the God of love, that there'd be a lot more abundance and a lot more love on the planet. How wonderful it is that we can believe that we can truly shift our lives by shifting what we believe about the God that lives within us, by shifting our consciousness to be like light that dissipates darkness, to let others see this light that shines within us so brightly that it lessens whatever darkness they're carrying around. Holmes writes of the mind that is within us. He writes of that law that is within us, that power that is within us, the friend that is within us, that healing presence that is within us, and the peace that is within us. All because right within you is all of that. All of the divine is right within you. Within you is the essence of the divine. All that the divine is. Not a part, none some partial offspring, not some little crumbs, all of the divine. Carrying some of the traits is not what we want to believe in. What we want to believe in is that all that God is who I am. All that God is who I am. And speaking of that friend within you that Holmes wrote about, I love this quote from that section. You have a friend within you who is closer than your shadow. The friend anticipates your every desire, knows your every need, and governs your every act. This friend is the God within your own soul, the animating presence projecting your personality, which is a unique individualization of the living spirit. So I have a question for you. How often do you converse with that friend of yours called God, or the silent one, or the divine, whatever you call it? How often do you embrace the peace that is yours for the asking, or invoke the power of the divine to help you through some difficult situation or event? I think we often forget that our best friend lives right within us, guides us when we choose to listen, and is, as Holmes put it, an animating presence projecting our personality. A friend that's closer than our shadow. And while God is personal to each of us, let us not forget that God is also impersonal. The I am, that which is the I am. The God that unites all of us, and the one life that's God's life, and is each of our lives. In religious science, Holmes wrote this: the universe is impersonal. It gives alike to all. It is no respecter of persons. It values each alike. Its nature is to impart, ours to receive. It gives to all alike. It gives, ours is to receive. And yet so often, I know that when I'm frustrated about something, I forget that the God of peace is right where I am, and I've let somebody steal my peace, or I've let some situation steal my peace. For me, the concept of the impersonal side of God was a little bit difficult to embrace originally. Perhaps because as humans, we see things as personal. We relate to things as personal. In the Four Agreements, we learn not to take things personally, which is directly based on this concept that we're all one, and God is within each of us. And what I'm seeing within someone else is a reflection of what I know a part of me maybe once was. Holmes writes this: I am the Christ dwelling at the center of every soul. Human, yet divine. Infinite, yet flowing through that which is apparently finite. Unmanifest, yet forever manifesting. Birthless and deathless, yet forever being born. Timeless, I am forever creating time. And you, the expression of myself, appear to be separated from me merely because you are a unique manifestation of myself. For I am that which you are, and which all people are. I am in all, and I am all. I am in all, and I am all. Can you imagine a world in which we truly embrace that every person on the planet as a unique manifestation of God, as just and loving, caring as we see our own God to be? Imagine right now letting your ego take a back step to loving everyone and everything no matter what. You might remember that last week we talked about God is in everything and everyone. So what if we try to remember that and try to absolutely love the God that is in everything and in everyone? To love everyone requires us to look at life through a different set of lenses, to embrace both the personal God and the impersonal God. I know that many people love the 23rd Psalm, "The Lord is my shepherd." And I actually love the interpretation in Holmes' essay on it in this week's reading, because Holmes shows us the God of our philosophy, the good shepherd who cares for his sheep lovingly and kindly, who feeds and shelters them and tends them so that they understand that that loving presence is guiding and guarding and keeping them, and they don't have to worry or be afraid. Rather, they have this sense of being cared about and a feeling of security. That is the good shepherd. That is the love that I see as my personal God. I hope you read that entire essay. It's only about 3 pages and it's fabulous. I particularly love the part where he interpreted the line, "He restoreth my soul." And I want to share that with you. Just let all the cares of yesterday flow out and all the burdens go with them. For the soul cannot be restored by the river of life, and lets go of the past and discovers that a new future is forever flowing around it. Something fresh and clean and new and wonderful. Those words remind me that God is indeed personal, and if we want our soul to feel restored daily, what is ours to do is to let go of the burdens of yesterday. I talked last week about when you put your head on the pillow at night, letting go of the day, recognizing that there are probably some things that you did great and some things that you could have been better at, and just turning them over to that infinite love that is right within you, so that you can wake up the next morning refreshed and ready for a new day. In Holmes' essay on God's will, he writes this: God's will is always towards life and more life. When Jesus said God is not the God of the dead but of the living, he was explaining that the will of God and the nature of God are life and not death. For how can the principle of life produce death? We might add, how can the principle of harmony produce discord? We must believe that the will of God is happiness. Then we shall have a strong spiritual and psychological background for our conviction that we too should be happy. In the quest of the soul for its greatest good, which is an inner contentment, we must know the will of God is serenity, security, certainty. I know I want an inner contentment to be the essence of my life. I want security. I want my life to be good. I want to be conscious of that secret place of the Most High all the time, of that personal God within me, and of the God that is within everybody that I see. How about you? What is it you want from your God? I want to leave you with a few more words from another part of that same essay on God's will. We do not honor God by being poor, weak, and unhappy. Nor do we limit God by such experiences. What we do in our negative experiences is misdirect the positive energy which is already in us, for there is only one final energy. If the truth about God is happiness, joy, self-expression, and abundance, then this is the truth we should seek to demonstrate in our own lives. This is done by knowing that every thought within us abounds with peace, partakes of the divine bounty, includes the idea of wholeness, and is shot through with eternal light. Every thought within us abounds with peace, partakes of the divine bounty, includes the idea of wholeness, and is shot through with eternal light. How can we not want that miracle occurring within us every minute of every day? So I invite you not to limit God by your experiences, not to misdirect your positive energy. There is only one life. That life is God's life. And that life is the life of each of us right here and right now. So in summary, decide this week to truly pay attention to that silent one within you. Recognize that silent one and realize your deep awareness of the existence of a universal intelligence by whatever name you choose to call it. Know that God is both personal and impersonal. You have a friend within you, closer than your shadow. Learn to embrace it, to trust it, to listen to it, to learn from its wisdom. And finally, know that the Lord is your shepherd, who restoreth your soul. Honor the presence that's dwelling in you by truly expressing joy and happiness and peace and love, and expressing it from this place of wholeness and lightness and light. So here's your affirmation for the week. How is it that I so easily and willingly make the choice today to know the silent one within me, to recognize God as unity and not duality, and to embrace a God who restoreth my soul? So your challenge for the week is to make a conscious choice to see God in yourself and in everyone you meet. To pause every once in a while and remember that indwelling presence. To remember the truth that God is happiness and joy and self-expression and abundance. And so that is the truth of you as well. Seek to demonstrate all of that in your life and live from that presence that dwells within you. Let's pray. So we just take a deep, nourishing breath. We settle into that presence that dwells within us. We connect with that friend that lives within us. That friend that is filled with joy and peace and abundance and self-expression. And we know that we are all of that. We are one with that divine, and therefore we are joy, we are light, we are peace, we are love. And what I know to be the truth is that the God that dwells within each of us is a loving, abundant, wise God. I know that this week that we are each going out to recognize the divinity that lives in us. That we are seeing the world through different lenses. Through those lenses that say, I am love and loving, and you are love and loving. And when we encounter something that maybe ruffles our feathers or has us feeling like it's not love, we know it's a call for love, and we send love. So I am grateful. I'm especially grateful to remember that the God without is the God within each person on this planet. And though we all personally see that divine life in different ways, we are united in knowing that God is right where we are. So I just release all of this into that law of mind, spirit, and action with great gratitude, knowing that the divine has already called it good, knowing that the divine has already said yes, knowing that God is indeed loving and accepting and joyful. So I can just let it be. I say amen, and we affirm it together. And so it is. And this is our time for our offertory song. So I know that you're going to be helping us out and sending us a little something. We are grateful, very grateful to all the people that have continued to donate through this time of online services.